Well, the Young Turks. I don't know if you know this. I'm your host, Cenk Yu. All right, listen, big show ahead for you guys. I hope you caught the interview I did just a little while ago with Julian Assange on MSNBC. We will have clips of that up, of course, on our YouTube channel and also on TYT interviews. So check that out. Now, I thought it was an interesting interview, obviously, an important interview, I hope. And I got to ask him a lot of questions. And it was about 15 minutes long, which is a very good size for an interview, especially on television. Now, a lot of people, I had solicited advice from you guys on what questions to ask him, and you guys had sent in an awesome array of questions, which I wrote down a great number of. I don't know if I asked them, 8 questions overall or so? I have 24 written down here with a backup list of about 10 more. Okay, so I could have done that interview for 2 hours and I wouldn't have run out of questions. Now, I asked them about a number of important categories. Let me just break it down real quick for you, and then I'll get to the questions I didn't ask, and then my take on Assange and what's happening now, right? First of all, I didn't ask him anything about rape, okay, or the sex charges against him. Having done the research before the interview, and I was up all night reading every interview he's ever done, every article about him, etc., right? I was amazed at what other people have asked him. BBC spent, in a printout, it was 8 pages, 6.5 pages was on the sex charges. I was like, are you ever going to ask him about the leaks? All these enormously important things that we found out, whether it's innocent reporters being killed in Iraq, whether it's 15,000 extra civilians that are dying, whether it's how the media has reacted to him, which of course I have bias there because I thought that was the most important thing. How about private Manning? I mean, look, I got a chance to ask these, but it was shocking in the interviews that he's done. The overwhelming percentage of all the interviews was about the sex charges. And so I don't know, we've talked about this in the past, I don't know if the sex charges are part of a coordinated smear. I don't think it's coordinated as much, but is it, are people in power happy to distract you from the actual leaks with the sex charges? Absolutely. Have they succeeded? Absolutely. I mean, it's just, as I was astonished at reading all the interviews where the reporter's like, squirrel, 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 sex, what? And so anyway, I wanted to ask him about the media. I mean, look, the guy, I think he's a journalist. I wanted to ask him if he thinks he's a journalist. And then how does he feel about politicians, very large politicians, including the Vice President of the United States of America, and at least 2 of the leading Republican candidates for president, saying things that he's a high-tech terrorist. Also the minority leader for the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. And then Huckabee and Palin saying he should be executed or hunted down like Al-Qaeda. I mean, because it's not just about, hey, what does Palin think? Who cares what Palin thinks, right? It's what happens if Assange, who's a journalist, is hunted down like a high-tech terrorist? What happens to other journalists, right? And I had written something for the show. Now, what wound up happening, if you watched it, is we did the interview, and then the president had a press conference, and that took up the rest of the show. So that breaking news pretty much ended the show, right? And Chris Matthews took over from there. But if we had gone the whole hour, if it wasn't for the breaking news, at the end I was going to do a commentary. And I'll share that with you, obviously, in a second. But that was the question. That was the whole question. I mean, who's next, right? And he took the words right out of my mouth. And he said, if they do this to me, how do you know you're not next to any other journalists who, I thought he was kind to him. I don't think a lot of the other journalists are sticking up for him at all. I mean, I think they're totally MIA. And they're letting all these demagogues get their way with it. And then Assange said that was digital McCarthyism. I thought that was another powerful quote. And then we talked about private Manning. And look, I'll tell you what he said about it too, but we should discuss Bradley Manning more on this show, okay? And so let me start that right now. Look, Bradley Manning is the guy who, of course, did the leak initially. They have arrested him for leaking material to the press, right, including WikiLeaks. Now, they haven't proved anything yet. They haven't even tried him. They haven't convicted him. But he's in maximum security prison. sitting in isolation for 23 hours a day. Now, most experts in the field believe that is, at the very least, cruel and inhumane treatment. We reserve that for our worst criminals, the ones that are in the supermax in Colorado after they've been convicted. 23 hours a day, the psychologists are worried that that literally will make almost any human being go insane after a while. Do you know how long Private Manning has been sitting in 23 hours a day isolation? 7 months. He hasn't even gotten a trial. By the way, do you want to know why they're doing it? Okay, it's not like, oh, golly gee willikers, we didn't get around to bringing up charges against the guy that is at the top of their priority list. No, it's because they want to, in a sense, and now some experts in the field and human rights organizations are beginning to call it what Glenn Greenwald has written about. They want to torture him until he breaks. So what is the result of that? If he breaks, what happens? Well, they're not interested in Manning. They're interested in Assange. So they want Manning to say, oh, yeah, Assange made me do it, and he participated in it, and he participated in our espionage. Now, if you look at the private correspondence that has now been leaked to the press of Manning about the leaks, why did he do the leaks? It has nothing to do with espionage. In fact, he says it's to a friend. He has no idea this is ever going to get out. In fact, he hopes that it doesn't because that led to his arrest. In those things that he thought were private, he said, look, man, I hope this has nothing to do with other countries. This friend says to him, hey, and maybe you could have made a lot of money selling it to other countries. He says, no, I don't want to do that. And what's the point of giving the secret information from one country to another country? He's like, no. My whole point is to share it with the American people so that it gets out, so the truth gets out, so they see that what our government is doing. He's like, look, I don't want to participate in this. Well, a lot of these actions are criminal. He is a classic whistleblower. Now, Julian Assange, in my interview with him, went further and said he's a political prisoner. He did this for politics, for political reasons, for transparency, and how he views our democracy in the U.S. And you're going to keep a political prisoner in what is worldly recognized as inhumane treatment when you haven't even convicted him or tried him? No, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, no matter what you think of Bradley Manning, and in the past I've said, look, I get why the government wants to arrest Manning. Of course, they don't want to say, hey, anybody can leak anything they like. Now, what happens in trial is a different issue. But even if I understand the motivation of the government in arresting him, that does not excuse keeping him in conditions that are, psychologically barbaric. Look, it's not me, it's psychologists who say, yeah, we've studied this. It slows down, if you stay in isolation long enough, it slows down your brain wavelengths. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they explained in the article that what happens is people start to react slower, think slower. It changes the way your brain is because you're getting no interaction. Humans are social creatures. Glenn Greenwald, in his article in Salon, talked about how people returning from Vietnam who had been kept in isolation and tortured in other ways, including Senator John McCain, said the worst of it was the isolation because it makes you lose your mind. Now, they have done other petty things to Manning. They deny him sheets and a pillow because under the pretense that he might kill himself, when doctors have already cleared him saying, no, there is no such threat of that at all. He's never done anything in prison that is remotely, acting out, violent, anything. Nothing to justify these harsh conditions. Then they said, we let him, at least exercise for an hour a day. Are they not merciful? Well, it turns out they said, well, no, you can't even run. You can't even do that. What you can do is you can walk in circles for the whole hour and that's it. And that's your interaction. What have we become? I mean, look, this isn't the United States of America I grew up in. We didn't treat people this way. We didn't violate all international standards of decency and morality. We're the ones who pushed for human rights throughout the world. Now, we didn't always live up to it. I'm not naive, right? But to do this to our own citizens when they haven't even been tried, it's grotesque. And why I keep bringing up the media is because in the old days, and I'm not that old, but I still remember a time when the media would have flipped out over this, that it would have been a big deal. Now it gets brushed under the table, like, oh yeah, Manning's basically getting psychologically tortured. Who cares? Who goes, yeah, enemy of the state. How come we called him a terrorist or something? Why haven't we executed that guy? The government told me it was okay. You're supposed to challenge the government. That's supposed to be your role. But, look, I think they've 100% lost sight of that. So let's go to that issue, right? Look, this is basically the closing statement I was going to make on the Dylan Ratigan show after the Assange interview. Look, the press, you're not getting it. This guy's a journalist. And you're letting the government frame him as some sort of, as Biden and McConnell's called it, a high-tech terrorist. You're letting the government frame him as some sort of criminal. But if they do this to him, as he took the words right out of my mouth in the interview, who's next? Who will they do it to next? If they say, oh, Julian Assange at some point got information transferred over to him by Bradley Manning or someone else, and that act is an act of quote-unquote espionage, well, journalists get things transferred to them all the time. They get calls from their sources, same thing. They get files from their sources on their computers, same exact thing. So if they do that to Assange, why can't they do it to the New York Times? Why can't they do it to any journalist? And by the way, why can't they do it to talk show hosts who are progressive or conservative? See, look, conservatives should be on our side on this. You want the government to be big brother to the point where if they don't like what you said about the government, they can either lock you up like as they have with Private Manning for 23 hours a day in isolation, or they can threaten to charge you with espionage like they're apparently convening a grand jury to do against Assange in Virginia. That's crazy. And the media, I think, is a little embarrassed, honestly, because what Assange is doing is real journalism. And it makes them look bad because they haven't done, if you took the rest of the media in America, and I give them credit where credit is due, and they've broken some good stories. Earlier in the week, we talked about how Washington Post broke a big story about government secrecy, etc. But I'm telling you, if you take the rest of the media combined, I think Julian Assange outshines them all. So when they see Assange, I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're embarrassed. They're like, oh, wow, that guy's doing the right thing and we're not. I don't know if they just have become government robots. So if the government says Assange is a bad guy, they say, okay, well, Assange is a bad guy. Everybody go out there and report Assange is a bad guy. Might be, a high-tech terrorist or doing espionage or whatever. No, journalists, you got to rise up right now and you got to defend one of your own. If you don't do that, when they come for you, nobody's going to have any sympathy. They're going to say, well, you're just like Assange. And you already admitted and you never objected when we, branded him a criminal. You're supposed to challenge the government. We're in a democracy. We're supposed to know what our government does in our name. In fact, that's exactly what Assange did. He let us know what the government was doing instead of the lies that we were hearing from the official sources. Your official sources are not more legitimate. They are less legitimate. They are likely to paint it in favor of the government. What the media has turned to in America is, well, I got an official source, so that's it. I can write that down. That's good. If you're not an official source and you're challenging the government, I'm kind of dubious. No, you flipped it on its head. It's supposed to be the exact opposite. Don't trust what the government tells you. And if you got a whistleblower, my God, that's exactly what you're there for. To do your job, to tell us, the American people, what the truth is about what our government is doing in a democracy. So, look, I don't know if they're jealous of him. I don't know if they're embarrassed that he's outshining them. I don't know if they, or if they've just become Pravda, if they've just become a government propaganda outlet. But if they have any sense of journalistic integrity at all, the rest of the media needs to step up right now and say this talk about prosecuting him is crazy, it's dangerous, it's against the fundamental core of our country, a freedom of the press, where the government cannot shut down the press like this. It's time to ride, and if you don't ride on that, and if you don't think that's an important principle, well, you're no journalist at all. I like to get work done. Okay, so listen, now those were the very important things. Well, unfortunately, what I ran out of time for in talking to Assange was I want to ask him about the next leak that's coming up against a very large bank. He says it's so large that the leak and the evidence inside of it that one of the top executives of the banks might be arrested and taken down. I believe him that it will be that devastating. I believe it'll be that bad. I don't believe anyone will get arrested, and I would be really surprised if anyone even stepped down. Why? because my guess is, you see, it takes the rest of the media. My guess is he'll put it out there, and I could be wrong. Again, I like to do this ahead of time, so you don't say it's Monday morning quarterback. Let's see how it turns out. Maybe it's absolutely devastating. Maybe the media will turn around based on what Assange said today. But at this point, if he put out a thing saying, hey, look, here's evidence that they committed fraud, the American media, as they did with all the leaks on the diplomatic cables and Iraq and Afghanistan wars, they'll go, yeah, nothing, no. Yeah, we know the bankers are committing fraud. Who cares? Nothing new. Don't look away. Who cares about this Assange guy? Sex charges, squirrel. Right? I mean, there's an article in a New York Times blog, and give them credit for writing this. Okay, I believe it was Aaron Sorkin, who said, hey, you know what? Here the government is going to be pissed again. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with them. It's the banks that are going to get exposed here, right? It's like, no, because we're going to find out that they haven't been regulating at all. So the regulators are the most afraid of what Assange is going to leak on the banks. Because if you find out, hey, you either didn't know this and Assange found this out, what the hell's the matter with you? Why aren't you doing any regulating? Or we're going to find out they did know about it and they try to brush it under the carpet. And we're like, oh, yeah, don't look away from the bank's frauds. They're our buddies. They're our friends in the government. So, of course, they hate it. I mean, if this ain't real journalism, then we've changed the meaning of the word. Of course, this is as good a journalism as it gets. So I can't wait to find out about it. I wanted to ask him, of course, people are speculating if it's Bank of America. Well, he never actually answered that in other interviews. He says it's going to come out, the information, in early 2011. I wanted to see when it's going to come out. And more importantly, I wanted to get to the sense of, and maybe we'll interview him in another day and get this sense of how much does he think he can change corporate America, and why is America different? This was another one of my questions than other countries. For example, when there's a leak in Iceland, it changed the whole country. The government was in massive trouble, changed to a large degree, culture changed, they arrested their bankers, etc. Right? In America, same information comes out and they go, oh yeah, of course, the banks are fraud. Yeah, who cares? No, look away, they're still in charge. Shut up, we're fixing the economy. Just be thankful to us that we didn't have a Great Depression. I don't know why we accept it. Iceland doesn't accept it. Why other countries don't accept it and we do. What does that say about us? All right, I can go all day with the questions I had for him and didn't get to. And I wanted to ask him how he, what he would say to the jury that's apparently thinking of indicting him right now in Virginia. And a lot of you had great suggestions. I'm amused by many of them, but one of them was, hey, is it possible to do Secret Santa at the WikiLeaks office? Or will it immediately be leaked who's who? Get it? Enjoying it. All right, one more thing on this, and then we'll come back. We'll tell you what happened today with the bills that are passed, and then the Republicans on net neutrality. Anyway, by the way, the news broke today, or actually late yesterday. President Obama is going to sign an executive order on indefinite detentions. Woohoo! Change you can believe it. So this is, of course, stuff that he had spoken out against earlier. I remember when he said he was going to close Guantanamo Bay. Now, look, he tried closing it. It didn't work. The Republicans voted it down. When he tries, I don't mind. Now, look, I would like him to try again. He had absolutely dropped that issue and never came back to it. I hope he comes back to it in the next 2 years. So I'm not overly tough on him on that issue, right? But much more importantly is, hey, how do you, where they are in Guantanamo, Kansas, Colorado, to me doesn't matter as much as, how do you treat these people? And what does it mean for us to be the United States of America? And right now, unfortunately, President Obama has apparently decided to do exactly what the Bush administration was doing, with at least 48 of these guys, to say, that's it, they are in indefinite detention. We will not try them in a federal court. We will not try them in a military court. We will not try them on a boat. We will not try them with a goat. We are not going to try them. We don't care. We will not present any evidence, and we will hold them indefinitely, which could mean forever or until they die and rot in our prisons. We no longer care to do actual justice. Or they might be innocent, or we don't have evidence on them. Who cares? No, I just deem them bad guys. Ken, and maybe we were full of it back then, but I remember days when we would tell the rest of the world, you can't do that. That if you're holding somebody, you have to try them at some point. You have to bring them to justice and say whether they're guilty or innocent. You have to give them a fair trial. Now we've totally discarded that. And we've got a Democratic president who campaigned on change, who claims to be a progressive, saying, yeah, no, absolutely, George Bush was right. We're the great United States of America and a massive imperial power, and we don't have to listen to anything we say. We're totally full of crap on human rights, and we would just hold people in indefinite detention for as long as our president, deems it necessary. By the way, they don't within this ruling, with what they're going to do, they say that they're not judging their guilt. They're just deciding if they think it's necessary to keep them. What does that mean? That means they don't even think that they're necessarily guilty. They just want to keep them. It could be for political reasons, because they got the wrong guys and they don't want to admit it because it would be embarrassing. It could be because, I don't know, they're Arabs. I don't know, it could be anything. Because in America, apparently, we don't have justice anymore. We have people who, these grand leaders, who decide that they could hold citizens of other countries or our countries in indefinite detention for as long as they like. This isn't the change I signed up for, man. It's despicable. Now, I brought that up in the context of Assange because now there are reports out that he might also have leaks on Guantanamo Bay. I hope to God he does. I hope he leaks it. And I hope all of the government is embarrassed, the Republicans and the Democrats, and then they say other mean things about, oh no, Julian Assange is telling you about our lies. Yeah, hell yeah, he is. So who I want to stay. Who I want to run. All right, come right back, Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Just a quick correction. I know Aaron Sorkin wasn't right. That's the West Wing writer. The financial writer for the New York Times I was referring to in the last segment is Andrew Ross Sorkin. All right. Now, let's go on to the accomplishments of the day. Yes, in fact, we have passed the START Treaty. Okay. We have also passed the 9/11 Responders Bill. All right, you know, the press amuses me. Here I go again. Oh
no, not again.
In all of these articles, they're like, oh, what accomplishments by President Obama. Victories in Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and START, and the Responders Bill. Oh my God, he's gotten so much accomplished here in this lame duck session. And you know who goes, of course, Schumer and Gillibrand, the senators from New York, they were pushed for the 9/11 provider bill. They got it through, bless their hearts. Credit where credit is due. I've already given the president credit on this stuff in previous days, right? But they take it over the top. So Gillibrand says, this is the Christmas miracle we have been looking for, and it has arrived. What's a miracle? But this is the easiest win of all time. These are the guys who got sick trying to help pull people out of burning buildings and did the cleanup at 9/11. You'd have to be politically, I don't know, mentally handicapped. I don't know how to phrase it anymore. But you'd have to be an infant. My little 5-month-old son could win on this political issue, right? And they're like, oh, what a massive political victory for Barack Obama and the Democrats. Are you kidding me? You know what happened, by the way? They knocked it down. They started with $7.4 billion they were going to give to this fund. They then asked for $6.2 billion. You know what the final result was? $4.2 billion. They just kept knocking it down and knocking it down. And it was supposed to take care of these people for the next 10 years. And the Republicans are like, 10 years, that's too long. That's too long, okay? Let's knock it down to 5 years. So the new provision is to provide for their health care for, and let me tell you the number of people who've gotten hurt, by the way, so you know. 16,000 responders and 2,700 people living near Ground Zero are currently sick and receiving treatment for what they got from being in that area, okay? And those people, yeah, well, 5 years, 10 years, it's a bridge too far. Tom Coburn was blocking the bill, right? So, look, it's not just about that it was easy, right? And I think the 9/11 responder bill is as easy a victory, quote-unquote victory, as you could possibly have. The second part of it is that these are not victories. And I'm not saying that to knock Obama. I'm saying it, to knock both sides. Because look, when you look at the START treaty, it's the perfectly sensible treaty with Russia that everybody's in favor of. For Obama to pass that is not really a victory for Obama. That's a victory for the country. That shouldn't be a political thing. I mean, so part of what I mean by that is that I wouldn't mark that against the Republicans. I wouldn't say, oh my God, the Republicans got lost because Obama passed the START treaty. That's not a Republican loss. That's not an Obama victory. But, Obama does a press conference, and everybody's like, oh, Obama press conference. Oh, look at these victories. Oh, my God. The whole press conference is this. Oh, START. Don't ask, don't tell. Don't ask, don't tell. 70% approval rate. Oh, who cares? Oh, victory. 9/11 was fun. And by the way, in all this, what doesn't get mentioned, although it was mentioned to be fair in the Associated Press article, is that none of this would have happened without Jon Stewart. And by the way, they're giving credit, and they should, to Shep Smith of Fox News, who pushed it internally in Fox as well, saying, all right, yeah, those guys pushing forward, yeah, that made a difference, okay? So all this Christmas miracle wouldn't have happened without them. So now let me go to Obama bragging about this stuff. He said at his press conference that this was, quote, the season of progress. Okay, all right, fantastic. And he says that, getting all these bills passed shows how bipartisan the country can be. Okay. I would like to pass a bill that we should all breathe oxygen. And, if that bill passes, it'll be a victory for me. It'll be a defeat for my opponents. And then I will celebrate, and I will hang a mission accomplished banner. I don't know. Look, the Obama people are going to say, again, that I'm too tough on him. At least he got it done. They couldn't have gotten this done. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? But they did. They did. Okay? Anyway, so then Obama says at his press conference, if I believe in something strongly, I stay on it. I know. You're a tough guy. Yeah, I know. I know. Like, he's so transparent. Because he took so much heat for, buckling and capitulating, and not just on the tax compromise, but on net neutrality, etc. So what did I tell you? He's going to come out and huff and puff, right? And this is him huffing and puffing. Oh, I'll tell you what, if I believe in something, I stay strong. Oh, do you? That's interesting, because you just buckled on net neutrality. Hey, JR, I wonder if we have a clip of President Obama while he was campaigning. Well, maybe he was saying we should give in to AT&T and Comcast and not do net neutrality back then. Let's be fair. Let's find out.
To seize this moment, we have to ensure free and full exchange of information. And that starts with an open internet.
Oh.
I will take
a
backseat to no one in my commitment to network neutrality.
Wrong again,
Because
Bob.
once providers start to privilege some applications or websites over others, then the smaller voices get squeezed out and we all lose. The internet is perhaps the most open network in history, and we have to keep it that way.
Except he just allowed his FCC to do the opposite. So all that talk about, net neutrality, no one is more committed to it than I am, except for when I'm not, when I'm actually president.
So you can run and tell that.
You're not going to add the second part? I think I got it.
Homeboy.
Is that allowed? All right. So he went back on his word, right? The net neutrality decision by the FCC is, for landlines, you kind of mostly with some loopholes have net neutrality, but for wireless you don't. And they can decide to charge you whatever they want, or they can slow down your website and really crush you on the internet. It's a disastrous decision. Now, of course, the Republicans, since they live on another planet, are criticizing it from the other direction, say calling it a government takeover. Let's listen to Mitch McConnell first.
The Obama administration, which has already nationalized health care, the auto industry, insurance companies, banks, and student loans, will move forward with what could be the first step in controlling how Americans use the internet by establishing federal regulations on its use. The internet is an invaluable resource. It should be left alone. As Americans become more aware of what's happening here, I suspect many will be alarmed, as I am, at the government's intrusion. They'll wonder, as many already do, if this is a Trojan horse for further meddling by the government.
JR pointed out before the show that he keeps looking down and reading his notes. I would be shocked if that weren't written by a Verizon or AT&T lobbyist, that speech for him. What it does is it turns the truth exactly on its head. So net neutrality would mean that the government or businesses cannot meddle with the internet. They can't say, all right, these websites are privileged, these are not, or they could not pick winners and losers, they could not create monopolies, right? So what happened was, now there's no net neutrality for wireless. That allows big corporations to say, hey, my website's going to work better than your website, or I'm going to charge your website more than I'm charging my own website, etc., right? It's the exact opposite of what Mitch McConnell just told you. Now, why is he telling you that? Because they all get paid by the same guys. Look, this talking point, Rush Limbaugh has said it, Glenn Beck has said it, Jim DeMint said it allows unelected, unaccountable Democrat FCC commissioners to take over the internet. No, it's all right, you got it, exact opposite. Yet another government takeover, he says. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Republican of Texas, says, we're starting to see the FCC say you have to come to us to get permission to manage your own website. Flat out lie. Not oh, miscommunication, not this, not that. Lie. Not remotely true, okay? Now, where did they get this talking point about a government take over the internet? It was originated at Americans for Prosperity, a conservative think tank that gets its money from corporate donations. Funny how that turns out, that somehow all these Republicans doing the bidding of their corporate sponsors who actually do want to get rid of freedom on the internet, they do want to meddle, they do want to have them be the gatekeepers, and if anybody's going to meddle with your website, it's them. So they take a rule that would have prevented that, they win on it, and then they rub it in your face anyway. And they say, oh no, Democrats doing government takeover. Oh, on landlines, oh, you're going to be able to do anything you want on the internet. That's terrible. I mean the exact opposite. The government is meddling with your website. They're the world's biggest liars, man. If you believe the Republicans, see, it's not a matter of dispute. This is not a political opinion. Here, they're flat out lying, okay? You can look it up for yourself. You can find out what net neutrality is all about. They're lying, okay? And if you believe that, you're a sucker. And one day, you're going to be blogging on your own and go, oh, wait, what happened? Oh, my God, Verizon's charging me all this money. Well, I thought that it was the government that was going to interfere with my internet. That's what Mitch McConnell and Rush Limbaugh told me. No, you schmuck. You've been had. You've been took. And you did it by voting for these clowns. All right. All right, look, the ringleader is Rush Limbaugh. So let's go to his stack of lie on top of lie on this issue. Go to clip number 7.
To give the FCC power to prevent broadband providers from selectively blocking web traffic. And that's just a ruse. Net neutrality is not what this is really all about. This is about the feds wanting to control the internet just as they control the public airwaves.
How do they control that?
They want to be able to determine who gets to say what, where, how often. They want to be able to determine what website, what search services are providing what answers to your queries. It's total government control of the internet, and the regime has just awarded it to itself. The only problem here appears to be too much freedom, at least in the minds of the government. Too much freedom on the internet in the minds of Obama and his FCC people. All you really have to know about net neutrality is that its biggest promoters are George Soros and Google.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
And MoveOn.org, which is heavily funded by Mr. Soros and Google. It's also promoted by a number of other radical left Soros fronts. What we're doing here is neutering the internet. It's another gleaming aspect of free speech, free market. Private industry, Obama has decided to take over as a Christmas present to himself and the Democrat National Committee and to Mr. Soros.
I'm trying not to curse on the show. It's hard. All right, I'm going to stick with I'm going to leave the adjective out. I can't do it. He's a liar, okay? Every part of that was untrue. But here's going to be the great irony of this, and I'm going to love seeing him squeal, because my guess is it'll happen one day, okay? Because corporations aren't actually Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal. They're amoral machines. They're profit-making machines, right? So one day he's going to get caught up in that spoke of that machine, okay? And for whatever reason, I'm guessing, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, whoever, is going to decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to charge Rush Limbaugh a little bit more. Maybe they don't let him. Who knows? Maybe one day there's a liberal in charge of one of these companies. Who knows? I don't know. For whatever reason, or they decide they're going to squeeze him for more profits, right? And they're going to go to Rush and they go, oh yeah, remember when you were against net neutrality? Fucking sucker. Now you owe us more, you fat bitch. Can't do it. Totally failed at controlling myself from cursing. But they're going to squeeze him. You go, what? Oh no, but you told me I was a good corporate butt boy. That I'd be on your side. Why? No, don't. Yeah, because once you give them power, man, they can charge your website, they can charge our website, they can charge any damn website they like with either more money or they slow us down and in effect crush us. You just gave them that power. And I can't wait till they use it against you. Young Turks.